Oh, here's my mic. Okay, so I was doing, I was going through like a kind of Bible study, um, and so it's going through Ephesians and Galatians, and so they kind of give more like in-depth looks into particular words that I'm going through, which are describing the fruits of the Spirit. And so it says the third great quality of the Christian is what the Authorized Version calls long-suffering. The Greek word is makrothumia. The word has two main directions of meaning. It describes the spirit which will never give in, and which, because it endures to the end, will reap the promise and the reward. Its meaning can best be seen from the fact that the Jewish writer used it to describe what he called the Roman persistency, which would never make peace under defeat. In their great days, the Romans were unconquerable. They might lose a battle, they might even lose a campaign, but they could not conceive of losing a war. In the greatest and most shattering disaster, it never it never occurred to them to give in and to admit defeat. The Christian patience is the spirit which never admits defeat, which will not be defeated by any task, which will not be broken by any misfortune or suffering, which will not be deterred by any disappointment, or which will not be or discouragement, but which persists and endures to the end. But macrothumia, patience, long suffering, has in Greek an even more characteristic meaning than that it is in the characteristic Greek word for patience with men. Christosum defined it as the spirit which has the power to take revenge, but which never does. Lightfoot defined it as the spirit which refuses to retaliate. It is the spirit which bears with everything which men can do to it. To take a very imperfect analogy, it is often possible to see a puppy and a very large dog together. The puppy yaps at the big dog. He worries him, he bites him, he growls at him, he attacks him, and all the time the big dog, who could annihilate the puppy with one snap of his teeth, bears the puppy's impertinence with a grave and forbearing dignity. Macrothumia, patience, long suffering, is the spirit which bears insult and injury. Sorry. Without bitterness, without complaint. It is the spirit which bears the sheer foolishness of men without irritation. It is the spirit which can suffer unpleasant people with graciousness and fools without complaint. The thing which best of all gives its meaning is that the New Testament repeatedly uses it of God. So this is what I was thinking about actually. Paul asks the impenitent sinner, do you despise the long suffering of God? Paul speaks of the long suffering of Jesus to him in 1 Timothy 1:16. Christ had patience with Paul the persecutor. Peter speaks of the long suffering of God waiting in the days of Noah in 1 Peter 3:20. He says that the long suffering of God is our salvation in 2 Peter 3:15. If God had been a man, he would long since have taken his hand in sheer irritation wiped out the world out for its disobedience, but God's patience waits and loves. The Christian must have the patience towards his fellow men which God has shown to him. And so this is like something that I was thinking about when I was reading that. Like sometimes like when it comes to forgiveness or long suffering or um like what has been coming up in my mind is that Jesus has been kind and loving and gracious to me. So whenever I'm kind of like angry or something, I think, something, it's funny because it's been happening a lot. I'm kind of reminded how God, like the second I'm angry or something, how God is patient and gracious. Um, exactly what was here, His long suffering with me. Um, Yeah, because often I always want, like, often it happens where you think, oh, I know, like you're bitter or something, and then there's always the reality. that we're not, and that we're all saved because of God's grace and patience and kindness towards us. Um, yeah, so that was just something that's really been coming up, and also the forgiveness, because sometimes you think, oh, this person has done so much worse to me, but the fact that I also have failings and my walk with Jesus hasn't been so perfect, and I've really taken the wrong roads at times, either by deception or just whatever I was going through, whatever philosophy had maybe gotten into my mind or wrong idea or whatever. I've made mistakes, and God has just been patient and long suffering with me. So yeah, sometimes just like need to remember about to just remember how loving God is to us, and forgiving and all of that. So I just wanted to share that because sometimes to look into the words, the meaning of the words, um, can kind of just give a bit of a deep perspective, because sometimes we just read something and we pass it over. So I might just do a few other words that I found interesting to do with the fruits of the Spirit or something like that that I've been looking at in this book, to just share it maybe, but I'll see what happens. May Jesus give you peace, and may his face shine on you.